The family and friends of David Barron, I appreciate your class. I appreciate your decorum, and I want to speak to you directly. Clearly, there are no words that this court can offer that will bring your loved one back, and there's no sentence that will change anything. Clearly, the court can never fill the void and the grief left by David's absence. You've been extremely attentive in court. You've been here for the many court dates we've had, not just the 2-week trial. Many of you have viewed the motions as well. And it is clear that you are fighting through staggering and profound grief. And the court recognized that. I've sat on this bench for over 2 weeks. If you include motions, almost 3 weeks. I've reviewed hundreds, if not thousands, of pages from the lawyers in my chambers. I am intimately familiar with this case. I was able to judge the credibility of witnesses, including Ms. Mericle's credibility here in this very courtroom. In doing so, I feel compelled to address the record regarding things that were stated in this courtroom. Everyone has a right to a fair trial. I do want to specifically state that the disparaging and, quite frankly, disgusting comments regarding Mr. David Barron lacked complete credibility. They serve no purpose other than to unfairly tarnish the memory of a man who is no longer here to defend himself. I take you at your testimony at trial, at here today, as well as the other factors that I've considered, and that I recognize David Barron for the man that he truly was to you, and not the characterization that was manufactured in this courtroom. I hope that the proceedings provide a sense of finality for the legal chapter. I wish you nothing but the best as it relates to your journey of grief and healing. This is not something that we can change, clearly. I know that this is a very compelling and hard case. I understand your emotions. I understand your loss. And it's not fair. It's not fair to you. It's not. That being said, that the court, along with the input from the parties, will fashion an appropriate sentence. For the legal consequences of the incident that we're very well aware of. To the defendant, Suzanne Mericle, the jury has heard and rendered its verdict. I too have listened to every nook and cranny of this case. 2 weeks of trial, arguably a week of motions on and off, thousands of pages. My duty is to impose a sentence that reflects the gravity of the harm that you caused, not Mr. Barron, you caused. These are requirements under the law, and they're requirements under justice. In determining the sentence, I've considered your conduct throughout this trial. You testified, which you have a right to do. I found your testimony to be not credible. I found that you were the primary aggressor in this situation. I found that you had many, many, many off-ramps, and you chose not to take them. Mr. Barron clearly left your proximity and retreated to the upstairs, closed the door. You clearly pursued him. You clearly fired through the door. And I think the state made a very compelling argument to the jury that somehow the status quo had been your version of events, that you in fact were firing through the door or the lock. But the state, I think, accurately pointed out you very well could have been not aiming for the lock in your jealous rage. That's what it was. I want to be very clear, the efforts to disparage Mr. Barron in this case were noted by this court. I found the comments regarding Mr. Barron to not only be inflammatory, but fundamentally not credible. You had the gun, you fired him, you had, through your profession, you have medical training, no evidence that you rendered aid. There's clear evidence that you then staged the crime scene. Clear evidence that you staged the crime scene. The attempts to shift blame and besmirch Mr. Barron do not weigh in your favor. These unfounded assertions do not mitigate your guilt, but only serve to highlight a lack of genuine remorse for the tragedy that has occurred. Every action carries consequences, and in this consequence, these consequences are catastrophic and they're permanent. Appreciate your family's professionalism and decorum as well. They did nothing wrong. They did nothing wrong. But I think Mr. Barron's family said it correctly, that they'll be able to visit you in the Department of Corrections. The Barron family will not be able to visit Mr. Barron. This is a real case. This is not theoretical. This is not an exercise of law school or law. This is the real world. And this is a reckoning. State's recommendation one more time in totality, please.
Judge, as to the felony murder, state was asking for life with the possibility of parole. I think the criminal damage was it next? Merges, and then the reckless 12 months concurrent.
Thank you.
Oh, I forgot about the tampering with evidence. Would also be 12 months concurrent. Sorry.
That's why I asked. Thank you.
Judge, I think the reckless also merges into the,
I can't hear you.
I'm sorry, I think the reckless, there's a criminal damage and a reckless, those both merge into the felony murder. So it's a felony murder and then it should be a tampering.
And I agree, Your
Yeah.
Honor.
Those are two
The sentence will so reflect. Anything else?
Not from the state judge.
I think we're all aware, and I think that both sides have made this point. At your age, by law, you can take your age, we're at 62 or 63, and add 30, 93. I think in the best of circumstances, that's a long life lived. I'll make no comment one way or the other. This is certainly a case that could be argued both ways. Coming in today, I was anticipating not only the domestic violence issue that was going to be brought up, but obviously contemplating what the sides, and obviously you never know, but contemplating what the sides would or would not ask for. I agree with the parties as it relates to the lack of prior criminal history. That other factors are not present in this case. I completely understand that. I also agree with the general concept that life or life without parole, whatever it may be, is essentially a life sentence. And for the family's sake, I do want to be clear that I do believe that this is a case that warrants Ms. Mericle never leaving the Department of Corrections. So for whatever comfort that is, and I'm not going to get into what the lawyers think or don't think. I think that there may be a legal issue if I were to impose life without the possibility of parole. I'm making no assumptions of what the lawyers, but I think that's why the state's asking for what they're asking for. So I will side with the state and I will impose their requested sentence. That being said, that the very likelihood is that this is her being imprisoned for the rest of her natural life. So I will concur with the state in their recommendation, which is the same as the defense without the domestic violence mitigating, which I've ruled against. It's judgment of the court that you are committed to the Department of Corrections for the remainder of your natural life. I hereby remand the defendant in the custody of the Sheriff's Department and the Georgia Department of Corrections. We are adjourned.